Hey everyone, Michelle back with another spooky Reddit read. Today we are finishing up the series Something Evil in Gifford, Pinchot National Forest, Part 3. So if you have not listened to Part 1 and 2, which are the two previous videos I did, I think 33 and 34, please go watch those first. Otherwise you're not getting the whole story here. So we'll see how this one ends. There were no vacancies at any of the lodges near us, so we decided to stay in a motel parking lot. Our plan was to wake up early enough that we would not arouse suspicion and then pull into Cougar Rock Campground that we were trying to get to that night and score a spot in the early hours before anyone else got there. Austin says that he wants to step outside of the truck and stand where we heard the noises in the woods. I sit in the spot we were sitting, and he stands outside the truck, and we waited for a long time hoping to hear something like the sounds that we were hearing, but we got nothing. So, very disturbed, we sit down to try to eat some dinner. I don't really have an appetite at this point, but I'm trying to eat something anyway. At one point while we are eating dinner, Austin reaches across the van, and a humming and buzzing noise that it was very similar to what we heard in the woods happens. It's the truck, he explains. It has to be the truck. He rocked his weight back and forth from left to right as he did it, and the buzzing noise happened consistently. I'm relieved, though we both agree that it was not the same sound that we heard in the woods the first or second time. It's much quieter, but very similar. Austin said that it must be suspension, and you know what? I'm ready to believe it at this point because I was very tired, and I was feeling soothed by being in such a close proximity to people and civilization, and having cell phone service didn't hurt at all either. I agree that it must be the truck, and we settled down to sleep. We were so spooked that we picked a parking lot spot under a bright lamp and wouldn't let each other go to the restroom near the woods alone, but instead of company to one another with flashlights and face the woods. As we slept that night, I was constantly woken up by the faintest and softest version of the humming and buzzing noise. It still had a strange feeling of otherness to it, but it was so much less scary. My boyfriend slept through it, but every time I heard it, my eyes would open. I thought that was odd because we didn't have very much room to sleep, and neither one of us tossed and turned that night. There was no weight shifting in the bed of the truck at all. The next morning, we woke up early and packed our things. We pulled off into the forest a final time at 6 a.m. before the entrance to Mount Rainier to organize, and so I could partake in some activity away from prying eyes. My boyfriend and I were reluctant to separate, but I didn't want the locals to see me doing that, and he wanted to tidy up the back of the vehicle where we slept in case someone from the park wanted to check it out and took offense. We discussed a signal for each other, and then I hopped out of the back of the truck and started my walk into the woods. I looked over at the road before I left, and I saw a man in a big black truck pull into the ditch and start taking pictures of the U-Haul and me. I told Austin what was happening, and he came out to look, and the man drove away. The full creepiness of the situation seemed to be hitting Austin, and he starts saying that he really doesn't like this. I go take my walk in the woods, and the darkness is still sort of lingering in the trees as the morning comes around. It's hard to explain how I was feeling at that time. I felt kind of betrayed, almost like it was unfair that I had felt like the woods had kicked me out. I'd always loved the forest. I wanted to know why some place that has felt so safe and healing for me for so long had suddenly made me feel more terrified than I've ever felt in my life. And as I took my walk, I watched the tree line for any signs of movement. The path, they made a spelling error, leads to a small clearing in the center of the trees and looked out into the forest. I might be insane, but I audibly asked the woods why that happened to me. I told the trees that I didn't deserve that, and I got really weird feelings after that, but way subtler than before, almost like sleepy. But all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up on end, and I just knew that I should leave those woods. I walked calmly with my head high all the way back to where we parked. The next part requires some preface. Austin and I were constantly talking about how we needed to buy dry firewood on the way up. It was a topic of conversation that we were having at first campsite before the noises started. As I walked out of the forest path, to my left, in a ditch, is a bunch of very obviously, super clearly dry firewood. It's not bundled together. It's thrown almost angrily into the undergrowth. But do you know what I mean when I say it's like so dry, it's obvious? It was kind of laughable and weird. The rest of the wood and the plants and the foliage and the scraps around it look like they belong there. But the wood looked brand new. It looked dry and cured like normal firewood. It was really creepy. I got very bad vibes. I tried to tell Austin, but he didn't hear me. A few minutes later, we were ready to go, and we drove into the Mount Rainier National Forest. The woods felt insanely different, lighter, friendlier. Austin picked the hike because it was his birthday. We picked a 6-hour loop on the side of the mountain, and we came back to the campsite exhausted. It's important to note that we didn't actually get a real campsite, but we managed to find a spot that we could camp overnight. So we set up the U-Haul again. We rested and camped and changed and argued and slept in the back of the U-Haul that day, and it never made the noise again. I even jumped up and down and back on the back of the U-Haul to prove my point. Austin sort of realized how terrifying this whole thing was, I think. He said that he did what he came here to do, and then he was ready to go home now. We packed up all of our stuff and we left. When we got home a day earlier than we were supposed to, and I had to call my dog sitter to let him know we were coming back. He's from Cuba, and he has some crazy stories about the supernatural out there. He said that it sounded a lot like a skin thing. I really don't want to say the name more than I have to. Or maybe a Wendigo. Or I just got extremely lucky and we were actually being hunted by some crazy Hills Have Eyes folks. We had this discussion as we were unloading the U-Haul for the final time into the house. He and I shook the U-Haul back and forth and finally determined that the noises that we were hearing on the trip definitely could not have been the truck. Alright guys, so there you have it. That's part 3. What are your thoughts after hearing all of that? Kind of does sort of feel cryptid in nature. So the things that the friend suggested at the end, you know, like maybe I kind of got maybe some Bigfoot type of vibes, because in the other parts, and when I really described, you know, the humming, the buzzing, the sound, there's a lot of theory that Bigfoot emits infrasound, and we feel it. Like there's an episode of a TV show we watched, and they showed that like tigers emit infrasound when they growl, and you can feel it. So they think that Bigfoot is similar. So maybe what they were experiencing was something like that, something infrasound related. I have to say, I don't feel like the noises were the U-Haul. I know that it would be more comforting for them to think, oh yeah, it's the U-Haul, it's not real. But I do believe they were experiencing something. They were avid campers, had a lot of experience in the forest, and for them to just suddenly be feeling this weird and not comfortable in the forest, and many places that they stopped trying to like get away from this feeling, I do think something was going on. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think of this whole story and what went on here. I'd love to hear from you. Please comment and interact, and let me know what kind of things you want to hear in these stories as I continue to read them. Hit that repost button if you can, so other people can see these too. Thanks guys. I will talk to you later.